This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd, reminding you that we and the show you are listening to are proud members of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Find out more and check out all of the other great shows and content at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, a man for whom getting stuck in traffic was the only thing worse than sticking around for day one of nationals, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear. All too often, gun owners and gun culture are portrayed in the worst possible ways in the media. This podcast aims to counter that narrative by shining a light on the members of gun culture who are involved in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. Now, while IDPA members make up just a tiny fraction of the overall gun-owning public, I think they're a representative cross-section of that demographic. From all walks of life, rich, poor, and in between, young and old, men and women, patriotic, caring, friendly, and outgoing. And this podcast is about them. Today, you're going to meet one of these awesome people. But first, I want to thank our good friends, G4G Guns. After surviving an attempted kidnapping and having co-workers robbed at gunpoint, Patrick and Cassie Coburn decided to get a gun for protection, and that led them to teach others about the need to protect themselves and to be proficient with firearms, and that led to the creation of G4G Guns. It's an amazing store and an even more amazing website where you can shop for any gun, ammunition, accessories from the comfort of your own home and buy without any gimmicks or credit card fees. If you want the personal touch, visit their store at 175 Bear Road in Van Alstyne, Texas, or stop by and see them at a gun show near you on the weekends. They're great people. They offer great service, great prices, an amazing selection, and no hidden fees or gimmicks. Check them out at g4gguns.com. That's G, the number 4, gguns.com. G4G Guns, the galaxy for great guns. g4gguns.com. Our guest for today's show is Memarie Lawrence from Merritt, Texas. Memarie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So tell us a little about yourself, where you're from originally, and what you do for a living there in Merritt.
I am originally from Oklahoma. My husband and I moved, my husband's from Texas, so we moved back here, about 14 years ago. And I am currently working for a company called Solvay, and we manufacture aerospace parts. And I'm actually in the safety department. And so I do a lot of report writing, keeping track of, the incidents, injuries that we have, and keeping my boss on top of everything that's going on.
Gotcha. So, where did your interest in guns come from? Did you grow up around guns as a kid, or was it something you developed later, or is it something that your husband introduced you to?
All the above. I grew up in a family of hunters, and so, I was around guns my whole life, but it was mostly rifles, and, it wasn't really a girl sport.
Right.
So I wasn't really interested in them at all. And then my husband, he's a hunter, and then he started, when we moved here to Texas, doing a little bit of IDPA here and there. But my interest truly started when I decided that I wanted to get my carry license. And my husband said, you are not going to carry a gun unless you are familiar with and comfortable with, handling one. So
Right.
I said, okay, that makes sense. And we went out and shot a little bit, and, a husband trying to teach his wife how to shoot, that doesn't usually work very well. So
Right.
he suggested that I find me a female instructor because that would, I wouldn't whine my way out of it with someone else. So that's okay, fine. So I found a lady teaching in Dallas, and she taught me how to shoot. And once I started hitting the bullseye, I was like, wow, this is pretty fun. And it just kind of grew from there. I was just trying to find anything I could do to shoot.
Right. So how did you get interested then in competition? How were you introduced to IDPA, for example?
Well, so when I first started shooting, there was a club. Actually, the lady that taught me how to shoot started a club in Dallas. It was a girl and a gun. And when we moved out here to Merritt, it was over an hour drive for me to Dallas. And my husband said, well, why don't you start your own club? And I thought, that's not a bad idea. So I did. I started one in Caddo Mills, and I was the facilitator for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. But anyway, when I was in A Girl and a Gun, they had the first girls only squad in IDPA in, I think it was 2014, and I was invited to shoot on that squad. So my very first sanctioned match was nationals.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So my husband's like, okay, well, this is a really good opportunity for you. So let's go practice. And so we did. We shot some local matches around here, and he worked with me. And I didn't do as horribly as I had imagined in my mind. I was probably, when I classified as a marksman. And so when I shot nationals, I was probably, in between. I don't know how many there were, but there were quite a few, probably, I don't know, 25, and I was 12th or something like that. I was
Right.
like, well, at least I wasn't last place. So after that, I just loved it. I loved the people, and it was just exciting. It was a lot better than standing in front of a target, shooting
Right.
at it. So I just fell in love with it.
What do you remember from that first match, from that first nationals?
Whew. I remember I was very nervous the night before, and I was very cranky because that's what I do when I get nervous. The only stage I remember is the one that Cody Ray was SOing, because he was very intimidating to me. So first of all, I didn't even want to shoot the stage, but I shot it, and I made an error, and just the whole time I was like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why did I do that? But I think it was just, like I said, because he, in the beginning, really intimidated me. He's a really cool guy now, but
It's that gruff sailor exterior, and
I
then
think so.
once you get to know him, it's a whole different ballgame.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just going to say, then we shot one stage out of a horse trailer. And I remember thinking, wow, who thought of this?
Right.
But it was a lot of fun.
So, what is your favorite division, and what gun do you compete with most often?
I started in SSP. I shot at Springfield, but then because I had it stippled, then it moved me to ESP. So
Right.
once I was moved to ESP, I was just like, well, I might as well hang out here for a while. So I now compete with the STI Eagle, which is a 2011, and I love it. So I would have to say that ESP is my favorite division, and my STI Eagle would be so far my favorite gun. I've shot the Springfield XD, and then an STI Trojan, and then the STI Eagle.
Nice. So, you're also a safety officer, as
Yes.
is your husband, John. And what interested you guys in becoming safety officers and working matches?
Originally, it was because we started a club out here by where we live. I wanted to, because I was a facilitator for A Girl and a Gun, I was really trying to get women involved in IDPA. And because I loved it. I mean, that was just, after I started shooting it, that was all I wanted to do, was shoot IDPA. So I was like, I've got to get these women involved in this.
Right.
So I asked my husband if he would help me start a club for the women to come and shoot, so that they're not intimidated. Because I know a lot of women that, they won't even start IDPA because of the intimidation factor.
Right.
So I told John, I said, well, maybe we could start a club out here, and it be, mostly women, new shooters, where, we're kind of like elementary school where you're first starting out and you learn to shoot IDPA. And he was all for it. Of course, he was all for me shooting anything he could get me to shoot. So,
Right.
so that was why we first started, or decided to become SOs. And so we started the club. And then since then, though, we SO a lot of matches because my husband and I and our son, Ashton, shoot. And so we often work them, and then we'll shoot because we, get a little discount on the match fee. So.
Right. So how many matches? I see you guys all the time. How many matches do you guys work a year?
Last year we probably worked 7 or 8. This year I don't know, we probably worked 6, maybe
Already?
Yeah, we shoot a lot. We all enjoy it, and it's awesome because we can do something together as a family. It's hard for when you have a dad and a 15-year-old boy, and then where does mom fit in? So
Right.
it's really awesome that we can all do this together. And so we shoot
Like the first family of IDPA.
as much as we can around here. So I would say, gosh, off the top of my head, we've probably SO'd 6. And I think the boys have shot, or will have shot 10 matches this year. I haven't shot quite as many as they have because I've been playing grandmother, but I go as often as I can.
So you and John now run your own range, is that right?
Yes. We.
That's like the dream come true for shooters. Tell us about the range, and how did you guys get the opportunity to become owners of your own range? That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, we don't actually own it. We are just managing it.
Okay.
Yeah. The owner lives in Greenville, and her husband passed away several years ago. And a friend of ours, actually, the range had closed down, which was really unfortunate because it's a large range. We have 7 bays and a rifle range, and then now we've added the long range part of the range. But a friend of ours, once it had closed down, he decided to open it back up and clean it up and kind of got it back on its feet. And then he moved on to bigger and better things, and he had someone else come in and he started running it. But he just, between family and his job, he just didn't have time to do it. And so John was approached with it, and John had been approached with it before, and it was just like, that's a lot of responsibility, and we have jobs, and then after he declined, then we talked about it, and he was like, I shouldn't have done that. That would have been so awesome. So when the opportunity came back around a second time, he was like, I'm doing it. And I said, okay. So we manage it, and we run the IDPA, and then we have cowboy action shooters out there. And then, like I said, the long range was added 2 years ago, I guess. And so we have the long range area that goes out to 1,100 yards. So it's a lot of mowing and a lot of target painting. But he really enjoys it. He does, most of the work. I don't do much of it, but he does most of it. But he really enjoys it.
What's the name of the range?
Jacob's Plain Gun Club.
And it's
north of Greenville. Yeah.
North of Greenville.
The address is Greenville, but it's a little bit north of Greenville.
Now that you guys have access to your own range pretty much, how often do you guys get out and practice and prepare for matches? What is your practice schedule or routine like?
Oh, goodness. I haven't done much this summer at all. We
Well, It is 1,000 degrees outside.
Exactly.
No one will fault you for not practicing in Texas in the summer.
Well, yeah, but I tell you, I regretted it after shooting Walking in Memphis last weekend. Shooting is definitely a perishable skill, so you have to keep up with that practice. But now, I mean, we are usually now, except this summer, but generally we're at the range every week. Sometimes more than once, but at least once a week. And some of that's practice, and some of it's shooting matches, and then some of it's just working. But I wouldn't say that we really have a set schedule. We always talk about having a set schedule, but it's like real life gets in the way, and so we don't often make it. So we've actually tried to start incorporating more dry fire, and not necessarily dry fire, but different like reloads, and different ways to different start positions, and different ways you can reload quicker, or load your magazines, or do an attack reload. Things like that you can do at home. You don't have to go to the range. So when it's 125 degrees, you can stay in your house and practice in the comfort. So it's we've been trying to incorporate that a little bit more, especially with the heat outside.
Texas in the summer gives whole new meaning to dry fire, because if you go outside and practice, you're not dry for long.
No.
What's the most interesting or challenging stage that you guys ever had to SO?
No, I would say probably, aside from the shoot house, we had one in Arkansas, and it's hard. It would be hard for me to set it up in your mind, but you were advancing towards the targets, and you had walls, and then you had vision barriers, but the start position was in the center of the opening of the two walls. And so you can see where if you went one way, you would be exposed to some targets, and if you went the other way, you would be exposed to the other targets. So you had to really watch to make sure that they didn't, and this was before fault lines. And so you had to really watch and make sure that they stayed, enough to this side or to this side, that they didn't expose themselves to the other targets on the other side. Right. And I remember when, John he usually is he's a CSO. So he's the SO, and then I usually am the scorekeeper. And, it was my job to really watch and make sure that they didn't expose themselves. And I remember telling him, I don't know how I'm going to do this, because you were just kind of right there in the center of it all.
I think I remember that stage too. What was the most fun stage that you ever got to shoot?
Golly, they're all fun.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
Is there one that jumps out in your mind, though, that was just like, I can't believe they did that? How did they do, like there's a couple that jump out in my mind that are just like, okay, I haven't seen that before. Is there anything like that where, of course, you SO so much, it's probably, there's nothing new under the sun that you guys see, but is there anything you can think of that was presented that much of a challenge from the shooter's perspective, where you're just like, whoa, that's an interesting concept. Haven't seen that before.
Well, I didn't shoot it, but the videos, and I want to say it was nationals, where they had to lay on their stomach and roll.
Yes, I remember.
I was thankful that I was not there that day, but that I had never seen anything like that before, and I would have been a nervous wreck had I had to shoot that. I mean, everyone said it was so fun, but I was just like, oh my goodness, I have never seen anything like that before. And I still haven't. That's the only time I've ever seen it.
Yep. I remember I did not shoot nationals, but I shot Lone Star, which is at the same range, a couple of weeks later, and they used a similar kind of version of that stage. and I made the mistake of like jumping on it really hard. So I was flying down there. I was like,
my goodness.
Oh, crud, it's over already.
Now, one stage I did shoot was in Iowa, and they had a, what do you call it? Like a swinging bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And now that was challenging. I shot it. We did an SO there, but as soon as you step on it, you have a gun in your hand. So you have one free hand to try to balance yourself. And you had to shoot from one corner and then move to the other corner and shoot from that corner. So you couldn't just get on it and balance yourself and shoot. So you had to shoot and then move and then shoot again. And
right.
I had never done anything like that before. So that was pretty challenging for me. And it was funny because, well, it wasn't funny. I shot at the target and I missed it. And as I'm moving back, then I'm like, oh, dang, I missed that target. So I move back up there and I shoot it again, all the while trying to balance myself. And I'm like, and I missed it again. It's like, forget it. I'm not doing it again.
I'll take the 10 points.
Exactly.
I remember you had to do these little baby steps to move around the platform, or it shifted so much that you thought you were going to be thrown off of it.
Right, yeah. It was crazy. That was a fun match, though.
Yeah, it was. What is it? I can guess. I can probably guess from your previous answers what you're going to say here. But what is it about IDPA that grabbed your attention all those years back and still keeps you coming back and still passionate and excited about it? What is it that is so much fun about IDPA?
I think there's two answers to that question. The first one being the people. Anytime you go to a match, it's like a family reunion. You go and you see the people that you haven't seen in the months since you've been at the last match. And it's just so much fun. Everyone is so encouraging. Even though in the beginning it was intimidating, especially when you're shooting, as a female, when you're shooting and there's mostly men, that can be a little intimidating. But I would say 99% of them are just so helpful and so encouraging. And then, the women that I've made, the friends that I've made in IDPA, it's, we've shot matches together and, we've hung out. And I mean, it's so much fun. And then I think the second part would be the confidence builder that it's been for myself. In the beginning, it was hard for me and I struggled. But having progressed through and, made it to expert, my son's still beating me because he's a master, but still, he's young. I'm old, so. But I think it's just been, to just actually see that I can do it and to say that I can do it, that I have, gotten a bump to expert and I did this. My husband didn't do it for me. No one else could have done it for me. I did it myself.
Right.
And I think that's just a huge confidence builder.
Well, Memarie Lawrence, thank you so much for coming on the show. Good luck in the future, and I can't wait to see you guys again in, next month in October.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to see you. It's been a while, so we're looking forward to it.
All right, that's all we've got for you today. Thank you so much to our special guest for coming on the show. If you know somebody in the IDPA community who deserves some recognition, I'd love to talk to them. Send me an email at Lloyd, L-L-O-Y-D, at unloadpodcast.com. Check out the show notes for today's episode and listen to past episodes at unloadpodcast.com. And if you like what you hear on the show and you'd like to support us, help keep the lights on, pay the bills, we would love your support. Visit patreon.com/unload and make a small monthly contribution to help continue what we're doing here. Tune in again next week for another edition of Unload and Show Clear.